Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Mayoral Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's been a little bit of time. I have been doing a lot of things on X recently, so I haven't had a chance to make an actual video. I was also waiting on a few more things to add to my repertoire here to enhance my video making capabilities. As you can see, as you will see in this video, it will be a little bit more streamlined. So that said, going to get right into today's content. Before I do, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share with friends and family to help me grow the channel here. So, first topic of the day. On Sunday, it was March 31st. It was the International Trans Day of Visibility, and Biden just couldn't help himself, had to make some type of announcement, which he later bizarrely said that he didn't make, which I will show you that he clearly made, or at least an official statement from Biden's White House, and it says his name on it. However, Joe Biden is, nowhere to be found. Nobody quite knows where his head is at. So we get right into that, and here's the official statement that the White House put out, and it says, "I, Joseph R. Biden Jr." Again, claiming, as he was asked, like he was claiming that he did not put this out there, and clearly he did. It has his name on it. So it says, "By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, I do hereby proclaim March 31st, 2024 as Transgender Day of Visibility." Now, one of the arguments that people have been making online was that this has been the same day. It just so happens to fall on Easter this time. However, what he could have done was simply just not have to recognize it. He didn't have to make a proclamation of this day. He could have just let it go. Nobody would have noticed. Instead, he couldn't help but shoot himself in the foot and put this on the forefront of the news for at least the last few days. It's starting to fade already, as the typical news cycle is nowadays. Now, one thing that I will call out here that I noticed that I didn't really see many people call out. I did see some people make some comments on Twitter saying, well, he's not making anyone do this. And no, he's not going to make anybody do this, but it can be construed as that. So the next line after the highlighted part here from the Donald Trump Jr. tweet says, "I call upon all Americans to join us in lifting up the lives and voices of transgender people throughout our nation and work towards eliminating violence and discrimination based on gender identity." So the big part about that is "I call upon." So I will go quickly here to Google and just say "call upon something meaning" and just click it in there. First thing here that pops up is the Oxford Learner's Dictionary. I click on this, and right here highlighted it says to ask or demand that somebody do something. So I don't believe that Joe Biden was actually demanding it, but he did call upon people, and that's within the definition. So people are saying, I am not going to be demanded to recognize this trans day. He literally said it in his language when he said, "I call upon Americans to celebrate this trans day of visibility," whatever the words were that he said. It's literally in there. So there are people that are absolutely right. Like, you can view it that way. And keep this in mind. If this was Donald Trump and he says, "I call upon my fellow Americans, MAGA supporters, to protest the stolen election," there's no chance, 0% chance, that the media wouldn't have run with that and said he's demanding, he's using that as a demand. So for people to say that Joe Biden's doing it, it's all fair game. It's the same game. If they're going to play it on the left, the right's going to play it too. And again, just shooting himself in the foot. This guy's supposed to be extremely Catholic, goes to church every day, or not every day, every week, as he claims. That shouldn't have been the tweet or the statement that he put out. I believe that he tweeted it out as well, not just a statement directly from the White House. It was tweeted out as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is here. I'm going to cover my old buddy here, Ed Krasenstein, who seemingly never seems to grasp the concept of what's going on with these issues, and he gets it wrong as he tends to do. So I'm going to play Ed's video, and then I'm going to react to his comments here. And I'm going the wrong way, so I apologize for that. Got a lot of bookmarks here. Wish I had them in order. Here we go. Here's my buddy Ed.
Everyone, happy day after Easter. Happy day after Transgender Visibility. Oh, and by the way, do you see these two women right here? They are transgender, and so is this woman over here. She's transgender.
So he's obviously
just so you know, I just
here.
want to make that clear. So yesterday we saw a lot of anti-transgender hate. I think it came close to reaching a peak, and it was on Easter Sunday, on X and on other media outlets. There's a lot of transgender hate. And what did this arise from? It arose from people being outraged that Biden would issue a public announcement marking Transgender Visibility Day on March 31st, which it has fallen on every day since 2009, and Biden has had this public announcement every year since he took office.
Again, just not having the ability to read the room. You're in a dogfight to be reelected if you're Joe Biden. Right now, you're showing that you're losing in all the key states, or close to losing in all the key states. And he puts this out on what is the holiest of days for Christians, which is Easter Sunday, the resurrection, which represents the resurrection of Jesus. And he could have nobody would have noticed. Nobody. But the far left pundits have to be, the far left activists have to be recognized at all turns. So here, I'll continue on with the video, but it's just ridiculous.
Yes, it was Easter this year. It fell on Easter, so people were outraged. I guess none of these people have actually had their birthday fall on a holiday before, because
stupid.
I know mine falls on Election Day, and I still celebrate it.
Really dumb.
Just saying. To me, I think this is just another way to hate the transgender community, and it's really filled with hypocrisy. So let's touch on some of the Twitter happenings or X happenings. As I said, a bunch of Republicans took to X to kind of make their own public announcements about Transgender Visibility Day. But instead of being filled with messages of acceptance, they were messages of hate, and they were quite sinister, in my opinion. For example,
really quick, just for those of you who realize that I hit the like button, I hit the like button on everything I comment on. Whether it's something I agree with or not, there's no down vote button. There's only a like button on Twitter because everyone in this world is fucking soft. So you'll notice on Ed's tweet, I hit the like button. That's just something that I do for everything that I comment on. So since I commented on this, I hit the like button. Doesn't really do much, but I figure maybe give it a little bit more exposure, maybe a little bit more exposure to my reply. I could be absolutely wrong, but that's why I hit the like button on this, not because I actually like what Ed is saying. I just noticed that. So I will continue with the video.
Libs of TikTok had a post that seemingly implied that it's important to make it visible that a transgender person, not even yesterday, was in the past burnt down a church in Portland, or attempted to burn down a church in Portland. Like,
watch Ed's self-own here, guys. He doesn't even realize what he's saying. So listen to the next thing he says about the mental health of the person, this transgender person who burnt down this building.
This really has anything to do with the arsonist being transgender, just because they burned down a church. Maybe it had something to do with that this person was schizophrenic and had taken 10 painkillers before doing this.
Yeah, that's the point, Ed, is that this transgender ideology, this transgender movement, is based on the acceptance of people that have mental health issues. Clearly, they have mental health issues. And Ed and people like Ed, instead of actually trying to treat that person and help fix their problems and come to the realization that this man is not actually a woman or this woman is not actually a man, they would rather accept whatever this person says, even though we know it's a lie. They know it's a lie. Ed knows it's a lie, but instead of helping the person out, they're going to play along with it. And now he's using this example of somebody who was schizophrenic, that was transgender, and burnt down a church as something of hate because libs of TikTok posted it on the Trans Day of Visibility, not realizing that he's making the case that we've been trying to make to these people for the last 5-10 years since this trans movement really took off, which is these people need professional help. And the professional help isn't a 30-minute consultation and start chopping off body parts. That's not the professional help. They need actual mental help, and they're not getting it. And people like Ed are just letting these people go. And this is the result here. You see somebody burning down a church. Here you go.
I think you need to add a little bit of context there, Libs of TikTok. Another account, Wall Street Apes, posted a video of another transgender individual in a store with an axe, apparently beating people. And I wouldn't recommend watching it. It's quite vicious. Happy Easter, guys. Happy Easter. This is such a loving message to spread on Easter, right? So Newt Gingrich, I'm sure you're all familiar with him. Oh, by the way, his profile photo makes him look a lot younger than he really is.
Who cares?
He had a message that read, "Is it really possible that no one in the Biden White House knew March 31st was Easter? Or are they also aggressively pro-transgender that they wanted to insult Christians?" Somebody should probably tell him that there are transgender Christians and that
this is okay. This is to more of like the pandering of the left, right? The real number of people that are actually transgender should be somewhere under 1%. Now, it's a social contagion which the younger generations are showing. I think the recent thing I've seen is 5% of people that are Gen Z identify as either transgender or non-binary. Non-binary might be a cop-out, just like people that identify as LGBT. A lot of them are bisexual, and it's just because, oh, I kissed my friend one time or something like that. So it's somewhat of a cop out. But he's taking this small segment of the total population, which is less than 1% that is transgender, and then of those people, there's almost none of those people would be Christian. Most of these people are atheists. So he's taking an even smaller segment of that, saying, well, there are people that are Christian. Yeah, I'm sure there's a few people that are transgender that are actually Christian, but that's what these people do. They take the smallest part of this particular group, or any particular group, and they try to make it about catering to them. So when he's saying, I think that Newt Gingrich doesn't realize that there are transgender Christians. It's like, that is so, like, the number of people that are transgender and Christian is so low that nobody who's making a statement like that is worried about that small percentage. But that's the left. They're worried about offending the smallest of small percentages. And of course, he's then going to call Newt Gingrich out for that. Finishing up this video here.
President of the United States doesn't only represent Christian white men who want to look younger than they really are, because Biden is the president for America, and that includes the transgender community. So do Republicans really think hateful messages on the transgender community?
And that's pretty much it. I mean, he continues on and says something about Melania Trump. It's really stupid. But again, there's a couple of things that are glaringly obviously wrong with what he's going after there. And the first one, when he talks about the libs of TikTok, is that they could have, or he could have obviously seen the error in what he was saying with the person is schizophrenic. Yes, they have a mental issue, and that's the crux of the trans movement, is these people have mental issues. That's not to degrade them as people. That's to say, hey, look, they need professional help. And saying, let's go to a clinic and have a 30-minute consultation, and then they start putting people on puberty blockers or hormone or different hormones, things like that, and then they start chopping off body parts. That is not good for people in the long term. It might help them short term, and once they have that surgery, they feel great. But the long-term studies right now have really not been out, and the few that are out there are not in the favor of just chopping people's body parts off. So there's that. There's the Newt Gingrich part where it's like, well, Newt is pandering, if you want to say it that, pandering to Christians. And it's like, well, there is some transgender Christians, okay. What percentage of Christians are transgender? I mean, a tenth of a percent, maybe something like that. I mean, 1 out of 1,000 Christians, maybe something somewhere in that neighborhood. It's really not anything that anyone serious would be worried about. And then on top of that, my first point was he could have, meaning Biden, not said anything, but he had to go out and speak to the far left wing part of the base, and it's really going to backfire on him. I think. I mean, you see, it's not a very popular position, and he was already walking it back the next day, pretending like, or I think on Easter Day itself, saying that he didn't say that, which clearly, as you see in this post here, Joseph R. Biden Jr. from whitehouse.gov, he clearly made that statement, or at least somebody in his staff representing him made that statement. So he's not going to be able to back out of that. Again, luckily for him, it's far enough away from the election. People have, memories of gnats nowadays. So this, might be something that goes kind of under the radar. And then the last point I'll make about this, and I'll move on to the next topic, is how many days do these people need? So this has been floating around Twitter a lot, and this is showing the different LGBTQI plus awareness days. And I mean, when you sum all these days up, there's months there's a transgender month, there's the LGBT month, the Pride month, there is a trans visibility day. On how many days do these people actually need to celebrate? Like, the self-indulgence is reaching in a new high. There's like 150 of these days for the LGBT community per year. That's almost half the calendar year. And saying, oh, they should have as many days as they need. I don't really care if they do, but again, don't make me recognize it when, Biden calls upon Americans to, recognize this Trans Visibility Day. That's not something that most Americans are on board with. And this reminds me of all these days here, and I'm sure anyone who's around my age, I'm about 40, you have to have multiple of these people that you're Facebook friends with, that you went to grade school with, or you went to high school with, these women who, and I know there's several of these women that I'm friends with, and I don't go on Facebook all that much, yet they put out announcements on Facebook. It's my birthday month. It's like, you're 35, 40 years old. Nobody cares about your birthday month. If you want to celebrate every day that month because it's your birthday, that's fine. Like, go ahead. That's your self-indulgence, but nobody wants to celebrate along with you, and nobody cares. Keep it to yourself. That's the point that I'm making here. It's like, go ahead, have your visibility day, whatever. Like, don't make me have to recognize your mental illness as something that should be widely accepted as normal, when it's absolutely not normal at all. I just realized, guys, my mic looks really weird. I don't know what's going on here, but see that? Like, that looks normal, and then when I take it away, might be the color of my shirt. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's the color of my shirt that's messing with it. But hey, you know what? I'm not going to fix it, because this is my first time using this software. I think it's working out pretty well. I'll work on the microphone. So, kind of along those lines, when it comes to the transgender and the calling upon Americans to recognize the transgender movement with Joe Biden, is this story here, and it's really quite disturbing. This is from Scotland, and I believe this was Monday that this law took effect. So Monday, April 1st. It says, meanwhile in Scotland, this is from End Wokeness. It's a good follow on Twitter if you want to give him a follow. I'm sure most people that are watching this probably already do, but it's at End Wokeness on Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call it now. Meanwhile in Scotland, beginning today, it is now a crime to say or post an insulting statement if it can cause someone else to have, quote, hateful views. So that includes any insult that could end up stirring up hatred against illegal aliens. It's insane, this law that's going on. If you don't think it's going to happen here, like, these laws are already in place in Canada. Like, it doesn't get much closer than your doorstep, and it's right there. And there's already the Biden administration, the Murphy versus Missouri case. It used to be the Biden versus Missouri, or Missouri versus Biden, whatever it was, about how the federal government was reaching out to social media companies trying to censor certain speech when it came to the pandemic, and other issues back in 2021, and that is something that's in front of the Supreme Court. I have confidence that they're going to rule the right way on that. I don't think it'll be unanimous because the left-wing activist judges will definitely probably go with the censorship regime. But that said, like, it could go the wrong way, and if it does, we could end up seeing something like this. So this is directly from this piece of legislation. And it says, a person commits an offense if the person behaves in a manner that a reasonable person, see, like, this broad language bullshit is unbelievable. What is a reasonable person? It's whatever the person who wrote the legislation sees as being reasonable. So that might not be me, that might not be you, but according to the people that wrote the legislation, a reasonable person would consider to be threatening, abusive, insulting, or communicates to another person material that is a reasonable person would consider to be threatening, abusive, or insulting. So it's all about feelings. So if I feel that your speech is hateful, it is now a crime in Scotland. And if you don't think that this is coming, or this could potentially come to the United States, there's something right in front of the United States Supreme Court right now, the Murphy versus Biden case, or I'm sorry, Murphy versus Missouri case, that if it is ruled the wrong way, that could have ramifications for the First Amendment moving forward. And, we are maybe one more bad presidency away from getting this, having this worse than it already is. And again, Biden is not going to help the cause at all, because he is the one causing a lot of these issues. So next thing here is the Baltimore Bridge collapse. Sorry about that. it was starting to play here. So the Baltimore Bridge collapse. Now, I know this happened last week, and I didn't get a chance to cover it on my podcast. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of X spaces. I've covered it on those spaces, but wanted to spend a little bit of time here on it and really just talk about, like, this is my tweet on this NTSB, which is National Traffic and Safety Bureau or something like that. And it says, and I say here, within 8 hours, the media and the Biden administration said it was 100% an accident. Now we're being told that it's going to take 2 years. It's going to take up to 2 years to find out, to complete the investigation. Right here it says, after acknowledging the fact that 2 minutes of data was missing from the cargo ship's black box, Biden's NTSB claims that it will take them 2 years to complete its investigation. I said from the beginning, they were calling this an accident before the sun was even coming up that morning. For those of you who don't remember, it happened at about 1:30 a.m. local time in Baltimore. So, literally within 8 to 10 hours, the sun had barely just come up, and they're like, oh, it's an accident 100%. Well, they're coming out like a week later saying, hey, well, you know what? Actually, it's going to take us a little bit more time to discern what actually happened here, which is what I was saying from the beginning. And you wonder why people don't trust mainstream media, and they don't trust the powers that be in Washington and the Biden administration. It's reasons like this. Like, hey, if they would have just said, hey, it looks like it's an accident, but we don't have all the facts, or not even commenting on what they believe it is. They're just trying to control the narrative. They've already come out and said it was an accident. So 2 years down the road, when they find out it wasn't an accident, what's going to be the ramifications of that? People are already going to be believing for the last 2 years that it was absolutely an accident. So again, this is how my conspiracy theories come to be so quickly, is because when everyone's saying in lockstep that this is an accident, when you have no evidence to suggest that, you haven't even done an investigation, you haven't even interviewed the crew at that point, why would you believe these people? And then right afterwards, and I put this up, and it says, within minutes, Bloomberg put out these 3 articles. So I'll click on them, and you'll see the screenshots. This one was from 8 minutes. I taken this 8 minutes after it had been posted. It says, the Baltimore Bridge collapse is set to disrupt global trade, including metals, fossil fuels, and grains. Next one, 12 minutes. So again, when I took this photo, these were within 5 minutes of each other. Baltimore Bridge collapse holds ramifications for global trade. And again, 12 minutes. So this one came out at the same time as the other one. Baltimore Bridge collapse triggers fears for inflationary supply side shocks. So regardless of what actually happened, they are going to use this. They were already, I mean, Bloomberg has already set this. This was the day it happened. This was March 26th when I tweeted this out, and Bloomberg was already saying that this was going to be something that is going to essentially increase inflation. Inflation, they haven't been able to get it down, regardless of how much this is part of why inflation goes back up. When it goes back up, you bet your ass that they are going to be blaming inflation, or they're going to be blaming this for inflation. Well, if it weren't for the Baltimore Bridge, we would have it under control. Bullshit. They're using this as an excuse. As I believe it was Rahm Emanuel. I think Rahm Emanuel got the credit for it, but other people have said it prior to this. But I'm going to, I guess, quote him. It says, "Don't let a crisis go to waste," and the Baltimore Bridge is going to be a perfect example of that. The Biden administration will not let the bridge go to waste. They are definitely going to use this to their advantage to try and they're going to use this to their advantage to try to explain away inflation. Next topic here. Look, I've been saying this for months. If you've been following my channel, I've been saying this at least since before the Israel conflict started. And my premise of this was, when you look back at World War I and World War II, they were not called what they're called today when those wars started. So the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand was the start of World War I. Well, it wasn't even called, but there was never been a world war or anything dubbed a world war prior to that. So that was never called World War until the U.S. joined the war in 1917. And then it was called World War, not World War I, because obviously there not been another one. There's no need to put a number on it. Second World War started being called World War II in 1941, at least by American media, after Franklin Roosevelt referred to it as World War II. This is even prior to the Pearl Harbor attack. But when you look at the history books, they say that it started in 1939 in September when Germany invaded Poland. So they always retrospectively say, okay, that was going to be the starting point. My point has been, I believe that this Israel conflict between Gaza, or between Hamas in Gaza, and really the other terror cells from that are going to be coming into play here from Iran, that is going to merge with this war in Russia and Ukraine, and then it's going to be World War III. And then obviously the alignments seem to be pretty obvious. Iran, Russia, China invades Taiwan, we get dragged into it, or maybe not even invades Taiwan, but just provides aid to Russia and Iran. U.S. kind of is going to get roped in, especially if something goes awry in one of the attacks on Ukraine, and something's hit, invoking Article 5 of NATO. So my point is that I believe that was going to be the start of World War. I said this when it happened. I thought it was going to be the start of World War III. We'll see. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. We will see. But this just happened on Monday. It says Israel believed to have taken out top Iranian military commander in a daytime airstrike in Syria near the Iranian Embassy. Are we inching closer to World War III? Again, I believe that retrospectively, if this ends up being World War III, they will mark the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war as the start of it. But my point is here, Iran has since come out and said that they are going to retaliate. So, I mean, as you would expect, Iran is going to retaliate. And this is a tweet from Mario Nawfal. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Sorry, Mario. It's 10 hours ago. It says, Iran's president, payback time. Arab world must unite now. So anyone who thought that this was going to be, a nice and easy, in and out from Israel and Gaza, they get rid of Hamas, minimize casualties, and that was just never going to be the case. And with this strike in Syria on one of the Iranian military commanders, whatever you want to call them, they're going to retaliate. And I mean, this could obviously just inch us closer to the official, dubbing of this at being World War III. So obviously I'm going to continue to cover this. I would hope that I'm wrong. I hope that this doesn't escalate to the point where it merges with the war in Russia. Something happens in Taiwan. Obviously, you just had the earthquake in Taiwan. That's a natural disaster, but that might that might be something that China looks at and says, oh well, now we have an opportunity. Taiwan's even weaker than they were before, but realistically, they're worried about the United States more than Taiwan. But it could be one of those situations where you see China take advantage of it, and hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully this gets quelled before it escalates to something more than what it is right now. I just don't see that happening. I believe that it will. All these issues are going to end up being one issue, and we're going to be dragged into World War III again. Hope I'm wrong, but we will see there. So last topic for today, there was kind of a oh, actually, what? Let me cover this first before I get into that. I forgot about this. So this is just an example of how ridiculous both sides are. So this is two stories that were roughly a week apart. So yesterday there was an election, or they were, I'm sorry, exactly a week apart. Yesterday was an election in Wisconsin. It was their primary election. They had a couple of things on the ballot that banned Zuckerbucks. So good for Wisconsin. Hopefully Wisconsin can flip for Trump as it did in 2016. But the city of Wausau, Wisconsin, that Biden, apparently it says here, Biden won that in 2020 by 8 points. It flipped to a Republican, and the Republican won by 4.5 points, or I'm sorry, 4.3. So over 12 percentage point flip from 2020, which is a pretty big gap there. And then if you look here, this Tristan Snell, this guy looks like he smells his own farts for a living. It says breaking: Dems win Alabama GOP seat by 25 points by running on access to IVF and reproductive rights. So this, again, another misleading. So both of these are off cycle. They're in the middle of March, or I'm sorry, one was yesterday, so the beginning of April. If you look at the one that took place in Alabama, and it says 25 points, I believe it was. I think it was like a 7-8 point win when that seat was originally up back in 2020, or sorry, 2022. I don't know why there was a special election for that particular seat. It seemed to be between the same two people. I don't know, but for whatever the reason that there was. But if you look at the total votes, this vote here on March 26th got about 6,000 votes, whereas the vote back in 2022 had about 14,000 votes. So these races end up being, these off-cycle races end up being whoever has the most the most aggressive ground game, the most aggressive people out on the streets getting the word out, because generally there's lower turnouts. So whoever has the enthusiasm on their side tend to win because they don't have to go up against those huge numbers. Like I said, 14,000 for this Alabama race back in 2022. This time was about 6,000. I mean, you're looking at less than half the total votes. The Democrats obviously had the momentum behind them. They had aggressive people out there. They had some of the talking points down and were able to drum up enough people to go out and win this seat. So good for them. I don't know the situation in Wausau in Wisconsin. I don't know why seemingly it favored the Republican here. Maybe they were sick of some of the BS that was going on there. I don't know. But I can guarantee you less people turned out for this than they otherwise would have in a general election. So my point is that this is, even though this is probably the normal cycle of the mayoral race, I know that in mayoral races are kind of weird. Sometimes they're all over the map. They're not usually even on cycle. So this might be something more indicative of those types of races. But for a general election, you're going to see much greater turnout than you probably saw here. So taking too much away from either one of these, I think is kind of stupid. So just wanted to call those out because I thought that they were just kind of stupid to bring them out, but both sides do it. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of it. This one right here, if you look at the Benny Johnson tweet, I know my tweet's there at the bottom. See if I can make it bigger. I got it over here on the side. And it says, even though Nebraska is a red state, they have a flawed voting system that allows Democrats to keep winning. In Nebraska, electoral votes are awarded per congressional district as opposed to winner take all. So there are two states in the United States, for those of you who don't know, that do this broken down by congressional district, and Nebraska is one of them. The other one is Maine. So right now, the way that it breaks down, Nebraska has 5 electoral votes, Maine has 4. And how it's broken down for the last, I don't know, however many cycles, is that in Nebraska, the Republican wins 4 electoral votes, the Democrat wins 1. And in Maine, the Democrat wins 3 and the Republican wins 1. So realistically, if they both went to a winner-take-all system, which all the other 48 states and the District of Columbia do, that would be a wash. However, there's a push in Nebraska to get this passed in the legislature, so it's a winner-take-all this year before the election. Now, you would think that Maine would probably go the same route. I don't know if they have enough time to do so, or if they have enough support. I think Maine's probably got a little bit, maybe it's not going to be like Vermont that's going to be as heavily Democrat. So I don't know the makeup of it. They might be able to filibuster on the Republican side in Maine to keep that as it is. But I mean, if they both did the same thing, it would essentially be a wash. It wouldn't be a big deal. But if Nebraska is able to do it and Maine does not do it, that means that's one more electoral vote for Trump and one less for Biden in all likelihood. So if you take a look at the map, and this is why it's important, and this is a great site here for those of you who don't know, it's 270towin.com. It's an interactive map. I really like kind of messing around with it. So this is currently, there are currently 6 swing states. They're considering Nevada a pretty big toss-up state. I know in years past it has gone to the Democrats pretty reliably, but things have kind of shifted in Nevada. The polling is showing Trump ahead by multiple points, some 3-4 points, somewhere in that neighborhood. So they're calling it a real toss-up. You got the other 5 states that were Trump states in 2016 and then Biden states in 2020, which are Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. So the big takeaway here is that with the southern states, which Trump is actually polling the best in right now. So depending on the poll that you look at, Trump could be winning all 6 of these states. Biden might be a little bit ahead in Wisconsin or Michigan or Pennsylvania. Those are kind of the closest states. But even though Nevada had been pretty reliable Democrat, that one is polling as strongly for Trump as, say, Arizona or Georgia. Well, Georgia's almost, based on the polling, it's like 5 or 6 points in favor of Trump. So that one seems pretty well in hand for Trump as it sits right now. We're about 7 months out from the election. So let's just fill in the map here. Let's go Georgia, Arizona, Nevada for Trump. Remember, you need 270, so that's 268. If Biden puts up wins in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, he gets there. However, this is why if you look down here on the right, these split votes, this is why Nebraska matters if they're able to pull that off without Maine going back and saying, okay, we're going to do the same thing. Again, it would take a little bit of time, but I believe that one, if not both of them, could get it done before the election if they really choose so. So if you look here, Maine's got the congressional district 2, typically goes for Trump. That goes 1. That's 1 electoral vote. Same thing in Nebraska. But if you take this Nebraska vote away and just flip it up, see, he's got 269, and then we'll flip that to Trump, and it's 269, which means his easiest path to victory, Biden that is to try to, build this blue wall, which is what Hillary Clinton called it. And Ohio was one of them. And Ohio is clearly, if you've been paying attention to politics in Ohio, clearly not going to go for Biden. It's been pretty strong Trump since 2016. And I don't see that flipping. So that makes a huge difference in what Biden has to do. Now he can't lose Nevada. He could go back and grab Nevada, but that changes the dynamic in how you would approach this election. If you're Biden and you say, okay, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, if I win those, I'm reelected, assuming everything else goes as it had prior to 2016 and 2020, even with giving up Nevada. He could still pull that off in Nevada if, again, we make that congressional district in Nebraska a electoral vote for Biden. So it just brings in a whole bunch of different math for both candidates. And now what happens when it goes to 269, if that's the case, then it goes to the House of Representatives, which will be very interesting because it's not who has control of the House. Every state gets one vote. So, for example, Wyoming is a Republican rep. That person represents the state and they get one vote. California is going to have 52 votes and they have to get together. I would assume the majority would then rule and say, this is who we're casting our vote for. Clearly, California would cast their vote for Joe Biden. But the point is that it really changes the math by changing Nebraska to a winner take all. Because that means Biden has to hold on to Nevada or hold on to Georgia or Arizona. He can't just let those southern states go and just say, okay, I could win these 3 states and take my reliable states and walk back into the presidency. Let me focus on these 3 states. It changes the math completely. Again, if Nebraska gets it done and Maine does not then do the same thing as Nebraska. So it will be very interesting. I'll keep you up to date on that. I'm sure you guys are going to see some Twitter posts and some updates on it. Hopefully I will be able to react to it when it happens live. We will see. But it's very interesting to say. Again, look at this 270win.com. It's a great site. Very useful for playing these different types of scenarios, switching this to blue, switching that to blue, and you go all these states back to blue, which are the ones that Biden won last time, and he wins pretty easy at 302, even without the congressional district. You have that in, it's 303 to 235. But the way that I see it right now, and I think most people see it, as long as Nebraska stays the same with the split congressional, and you make all these toss-ups, and even if you give Nevada back to Biden, Trump's got a 235 total electoral votes, and really if he gets Pennsylvania and Georgia, that's enough to get him there. But Pennsylvania's going to be a little bit more difficult. So Georgia's probably the most likely state to go for Trump of the states that went for Biden last time. So he's sitting at 251. So you kind of do the math there. What's going to get him 19 electoral votes? And obviously Pennsylvania meets that math. You can, if that is only 18, where he's got 252, Arizona and Nevada combined, they don't get him there, but they get him to a guaranteed tie. So it'll be interesting to see what happens out of Nevada. And again, I will keep you guys up to date. So last thing today, it's not a subject. It is my weekly shout out. So I wanted to shout out here, and let me switch cameras here. Let me go. Actually, let me look him up, because this is the guy I've been doing a lot of spaces with. His name is Jason. His Twitter handle is JDO Post. And I'll go to his profile here. I'm gonna switch my camera back to my main camera. And I really should play in this one because this is a better camera. But so for those of you who looking here, JDO Post, Jason, he's got some great content that he puts out there. Very smart guy, very sharp. I suggest that you give him a follow. He's got 2,600 followers, trying to grow his business. Congratulations to Jason. Last week he just got monetized on X after putting in some hard work and putting out some great content. So at JDO Post, make sure you do yourself a favor, give him a follow. And did I switch that? Didn't want to do that. Sorry, guys. Screen share. Let me go back to this one. Sorry. Here we go. I switched to just straight to this. So I'll pull it up again here. So at JDO Post, again, this is Jason's page, 2,600 followers. Make sure you give him a follow. So that's it for this episode of the Mayoral Podcast. Please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share with friends and family if you like the content you see here today. And I will see you all in the next video.